have seen is Haibane Renmei.
Nice segue. Excellent.
Matt, I actually did a little bit of what you typically do on this. I actually researched around the show instead of just about the show.
Oh, okay, great.
I will kick us off.
Good job, because I kind of dropped the ball there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the
So
first
go ahead
thing,
and go.
the first thing that stuck out to me, because you know how much I love like character design as far as like people's eyes in anime are concerned. Everybody has a different way of drawing eyes, and I love it. These ones, I was like, that looks exactly like Lane. I was like,
Yeah, it's by the same guy.
yeah. So the director is Tamakazu Takoro, who is the same one that did Serial Experiments Lane, and the character designer is the same one that worked on Serial Experiments Lane as well. In fact, interesting, the character designer Yoshitoshi Abe actually
Is the
yeah, he was the creator. He wrote and did the art for the original series. It was originally a doujinshi that he just self-published.
Yeah.
But then, you know, his best bud, Tokoro, was just like, dude, we should make this into an anime. And he was like, absolutely. So he just dropped the doujinshi that he was making because he was releasing it like every now and then. And he just completely dropped it, and then they just completed the series as an anime.
And it's really interesting that this is about 4 years after Serial Experiments Lane came out. So this came out in late 2002. Lane came out in late 1998.
Oh shit!
So same author. So it was really interesting to me, and that's part of the reason why I put this one into the rotation in the first place, because you know I immediately thought, wow, Lane was a mindfuck and a half. So
yeah,
what is this dude going to do with angels?
Yeah, when you put this into the rotation, I had no idea why. Because like I didn't know anything about this going in, like nothing at all. It was only after I watched like the first or second episode that I actually researched into it.
Yeah, and that was the main thing. I just wanted to see what Abe was going to throw at us with this one. So,
and I was not disappointed.
All I was going to say was that I wasn't really a huge fan of Lane. Like, it was cool what it did, and I understand that, but I don't know. Abe's storytelling style is just not for me, I don't think.
Well, Abe didn't do the writing for Lane. He only did the character designs.
Oh, did he?
They actually got somebody else to do the writing for Lane, and I can't remember his name. It wasn't even the director. They specifically asked somebody else to write the story.
But I will concede to what you're saying, though. It is there's a kind of pacing that's present in Haibane Renmei that is somewhat atypical to what most people would usually want out of their pacing and the unfolding of their stories.
Right.
I don't know specifically how to necessarily
I don't want to say it's slow, because it's not. It's like,
well, but it is in some ways.
It is slow in some ways, but then like in other ways, like I don't even want to say it's like a pacing problem. I don't even know if calling it a pacing problem is exactly the right word for it.
I don't know if
it's
I would
kind
want
of
to call it a problem, I think is what I want to attach to that.
Well, I think it is a problem, but I think...
Yeah, so you have the floor. So
what I think, and what I do understand that it is trying to build this world. I understand that. I understand that they're trying to build this world around, there's these, beings called I don't even remember. Are they the Haibane? That's what they're called?
Yeah,
okay.
Haibane.
I just remember called them the angel things, because
the charcoal wings.
Yeah. And they built this world around, like, they hatch from these cocoon things, and then, they grow up, and then they eventually, find something, like, I guess they find like a purpose, or like they kind of come with this thing of self-realization, and then they, move on. Like, that's kind of the whole point of the story.
Which I really want to talk on that, because I have a good comparison, but sorry, keep going.
Okay. Well, and I understand also that, they're in this world that's kind of like secluded from everything else. They can't leave the town, for example, because of the walls, and there's all that. And I understand like that world building is really cool. But I feel like in the beginning of the show, and this is going back to what I was saying about the pacing, I feel that a lot of that was just not really it. I don't want to say it wasn't touched upon, because it was, but I want to say it wasn't touched upon in a way that I could tangibly understand it. Like the way that the way I viewed the series, like, and I did a little bit of reading about this actually, is that basically a lot of people say that the anime is more of an exploration kind of thing. Like, it doesn't tell you anything. It kind of lets you find it out for yourself. But at the same time, like, I don't really like that style, because I didn't know anything like through most of the show. So I was just left confused on why things were happening. So basically, while I understand that some people would like that, they can kind of like build the world for themselves and fill in the blanks. I would personally just rather have it just told to me and see what you do with the story instead.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
That's fair. If that's your preference
yeah,
in storytelling, that's totally fair.
Yeah, but anyway,
I don't think the show is bad. I just definitely think, and that's the reason I said it's not for me, because it's just not the kind of storytelling that I like. Because when I try to fill in the blanks, it just bugs me the entire time that why is that happening? Why are they doing this? Why is that happening? Why is that even there? I don't understand any of that. Like, and as I try to process it, like, my brain just can't, like, it tries to think of reasons, and it's like, well, I don't have any clear-cut facts, so what does this mean to me? It means nothing right now. Like,
sure, and that's kind of part
we
of the
didn't
thing
get a lot
that's
of resolution until like the last episode, so it was like
I would argue we start to get a lot more once we get halfway, and then it slow burns its way to the end.
You literally took that phrase out of my mouth.
Oh, really?
And just like smacked it into the sky of our words. So thank you for that.
The word "smack at the sky."
Yeah, just kind of funewa amu you there.
So
But
can I say something real quick?
Yeah, you're good. I'm done now.
Okay. Because I actually enjoy these types of stories. It's the same reason why I like 2001: Space Odyssey. It's the same reason why I like Akira or Serial Experiments Lane. It's because there are a lot of things that come from a classic cinema approach where where they expect you to be patient. It is a pacing in which they expect patience. They ask you to just be patient with us, and we'll get there. Which if you like, if you go in knowing that, it's a lot better. But if you even understand that halfway, like I did, because I got to about like episode 4 or 5, and I'm like, still super slice of life. These guys did Lane. What the fuck are they gonna do? And I was still kind of expecting something to happen, and like you said, it was definitely slow go until well into like the last half of it. But like that's what I like about it, is that you have a lot of time to introduce your characters and to introduce the world that's going on, and they allow you to live in that world during that time. And then once they have you comfortable, that's when they start over time they just start to approach you with more and more information as it goes. So you start with an egg, you start with a cocoon, you start with the angels and the old home, then you get the town, then you get the actual religious organizations that are surrounding the town. Then you get this and that and this and that, and this very slow build until we finally get to the more, I guess, sort of action heavy into the series. It's not action, but drama heavy. And I like that. And that's something that I learned whenever I was going in to watch a lot of Stanley Kubrick, is that he demands your patience for the film. And so, like, maybe it's because I've gotten a little bit more used to that, but, like, I tend to enjoy that because it allows me to think about what's going on and think about what could possibly happen and theorize my own ideas about that. And then even if some of those get struck down, I'm like, that's totally fine. You told me that little bit, that little extra clue, and that way I'm solving a bit more of the mystery of this world that they're in.
Right.
And see, kind of as like a sort of a midway point of what you both have said, Matt, you said that this was a very exploratory kind of anime. in that sense. And for me, I kind of liked how the series went around, because you say, but as you mentioned, there are a lot of aspects of the world that's been built here that is ultimately not fully explained. So, we don't fully know who the Toga are or why they were established.
Yeah.
We don't know what's outside of the walls. We don't know where they get their trade from. We don't know how expansive the world is out there. And for me, for this particular show, I was fine with having these sort of blank spots, because it seemed, in that sense, intentional that they were left blank. It wasn't as if the show had these blank spots for these things that they actually tried to explain, and they just failed to do so. So, for me, I was able to just float on with the series, and as things happen, as we're introduced to new concepts about, the hand sign language of the Toga group, how the Haibane have to interact with them, etc. If something came up and wasn't fully addressed, I could just let it pass on by. It's like, okay, well, if that's not something you want to directly address, it's not the most important thing to this series, so fine, okay. So for me personally, like I really enjoy these kinds of series that are largely exploratory, that kind of allow you to just puzzle things out. But as you said, it's not everyone's taste, and I can see how some people would, go into this and come out of it like, okay, well, I just went through 12 episodes of nothing.
Well,
13.
13, yes.
Yeah.
Well, there were 13 episodes. I don't know. I liked the last episode because it kind of was what I was kind of expecting out of the series. We'll obviously talk probably about that in a little bit, but I liked episode 13 because that's kind of more along the lines I expected the entire series to be, was something along that level. And I just didn't get it. I thought this was going to be like kind of a Shinsekai Yori thing, I guess, maybe, where we're just going to get like plot twists like every couple episodes, or like a new aspect is just completely like blown out of the water.
Maybe we should have seen Shinsekai Yori before this.
Maybe not, because
but the thing is, like, when I was selecting this, and when I read a few short, super non-spoilery things about it, that is kind of what I expected this series to be. When I was like, yeah, okay, let's put this in the rotation. This will be, fodder for conversation. And it wasn't, but I'm pleased with what I did get.
And I will say, because I actually did write down what you were talking about before, where there's a lot of mysteries and a lot of stuff unsaid. And how you like that. I also did like that. And I will say that they did, by the end of it, explain a lot. Like a lot of a lot of the mysteries that they were presenting. But it's just they kept some that they just felt they didn't need to. And because they didn't like completely pad those out, it left a lot more mystery in the series, and that made me more excited. It made me more interested in the world because there's things I don't understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that was part of the scope of the series that they didn't have to address for the story that they wanted to tell to make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I understand that. As I said, it was kind of just a personal thing that I was just like, it was just kind of confusing for me, and I still don't kind of like fully understand what the actual heck was going on, but I kind of grasp it barely enough to understand like the point of the series, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, like you're at least grasping it to some degree. So
yeah, I'm trying. I really made the effort to try to grasp it, and it just sometimes just did not happen.
The first couple episodes threw me for a loop, too, because once I actually figured out that this was the same people that made Zero Experiments Lane, the fact that even in the first episode, there's like 5 times more jokes than the entire series of Zero Experiments Lane combined, I was just like, this is so tonally different. I did not expect this. It was really throwing me for a loop.
Like I really didn't expect the amount of levity that the show had, from it being described as a slice of life mystery psychological fantasy drama.
Yeah, I was like,
Like,
how
where
do
do
By
you
you...
the
even go
creators
from
of Serial
there?
Experiments Lane.
The fact,
so
the
I'm sitting
fact that
here
it's slice
and I'm
of
like,
life and
what?
psychological. Yeah, I'm just like, what?
Yeah, it's like, what?
Yeah.
All right, where are you pulling my leg here?
So
Oh, I wanted to get into so there's something that I noticed about the Haibane, or however you want to say that, the angels in the series, that I thought was interesting, that they didn't really delve too much into, was the fact that the angels in the series were second class citizens.
yep.
They
So for the Haibane, they are, of course, humanoid in nature and things of that
Hmm.
nature.
but they
Great
do
word
have
choice there.
wings,
Um,
and they get a halo.
Yeah. Now, interesting. The halo is manufactured.
The halo
You
is
know,
manufactured, and they never get
it's
into
like
the point
forged from
about
some
why.
kind of. Yeah, it's really interesting, but within this wall enclosed town that the whole series takes place in, the Habanese are not allowed to have access to currency of any kind. They don't have
Right.
money.
They have a script,
Um,
and I thought that was interesting. I was like, wow, we're back in the coal mines.
yeah. They don't have money. They cannot buy new things
Everything must
unless
be
it's food or
hand-me-downs.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
While there is
Um,
gift giving to them, it's usually not necessarily encouraged.
yeah.
They
And
have to
so it
work
was
for it.
Right.
really interesting in that sense because I believe that was one of the things that they didn't fully explain the reason behind.
They didn't,
It was
although I have a
always
theory. But you
yeah.
can
Of course, there's going to
A
be
game
theories.
theory? It better not be a game theory.
No, fuck you.
Can use that, but yeah, it's just it's interesting that you know they always go on about well, this is how it is for the Haibane. No one said necessarily why, but it's just how it is.
Hmm.
However, while they are second class citizens and are very much treated as such, in fact, to the point where, if you remember, whenever they're making up the Genesis story, as in they're taking sources of the Genesis story, combining them together, and then making their own ending to that as like a fun little book, they even state that God Himself, within that Genesis story, they state that God Himself made them as a mistake, and so they see themselves as a mistake, and then the humans are the ones that are correct, that are perfect. And I always thought that was interesting. However, while they do even think of themselves as second class citizens, they are treated with respect. That is what I found interesting. Because if you look at societies throughout history, that is not the case. Second class citizens are not treated with respect. They're not even considered close to human beings sometimes.
Right.
And so, like, it's really interesting that one of the things that they decided to do for this, and goes into the theory that I'll get into later, but is that even though they are second class citizens, everyone's still nice. Everyone's still genuine and treats them with some respect. There are some moments where, like, apparently the people in the town consider that if you see an angel that it's gonna be a lucky day, and then there's like even this one really annoying woman that comes up and it's like, can I touch you? And she's like trying to fucking mess with the main
Like, yo, girl, can I touch your hair?
Yeah, she was like, your halo, I want to touch it, and it's just like wants to poke the shit out of it. And very
What the
obvious.
fuck? Who
Yeah,
does that?
I mean,
Like-
you gotta have some boundaries, and this woman obviously didn't. But if you notice, everybody else in the town doesn't behave that way. That was a singular event, because like when the main character falls, immediately after that scene, an old man says, "Wow, that was quite a fall there, young lady," and offers his hand, and she takes it from him. And like and
Right.
everybody's helping, everybody's generous to her. And so I thought that was interesting that they decided to go that way. They didn't want to explore any ideas or themes of race necessarily. They didn't want to explore any ideas or themes of like of these second class citizens being persecuted or oppressed. Just unlike Shinsekai Yori that did want to do that. It just wasn't a focus, and I thought that was interesting that they would choose
Right.
to do that. But yeah.
Yeah. I don't know where to go from there. But no, I mean, I agree with you. I just don't have anything to add. Like, you pretty sufficiently squelched that topic. You you hammered it in the nail in the floor.
Whoops.
You hammered it in the nail in the floor.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Words are hard tonight. But you got the idea. You nailed it.
Yeah, so I just thought that was an interesting thing. The angels themselves are interesting individuals with all the different growth and evolution of them.
It seems particularly interesting to me that Haibane itself doesn't actually seem to be a word for angel in that sense. And it's fascinating to me because it does seem as though like the world that this takes place in is some kind of at least a parallel to ours. And so with all this sort of mythology surrounding it, it's interesting to me that they aren't referred to as angels or cherubim or anything of that nature, that they're like this own separate thing. And so I guess it's kind of just interesting to me to think, like, are they supposed to be like a rework of angels or something of that nature, or are there actually like angels within that world's mythology that are set apart? Again, it's all just theorizing, and this, isn't something to really dwell on a lot. But I thought it was an interesting choice to not mention the concept of traditional angels like at all in the series. It was an interesting absence.
It was, especially because there are very religious themes explored. I mean, they even go over the basis of Genesis in this, like the Christian Genesis.
They didn't call it Genesis, but I mean...
Right, they don't call it Genesis, but at the same time, they also don't call them angels. I think it was an intentional thing by the author that he wanted to just kind of like differentiate them a little bit.
Right.
And I think one of the reasons for that is because technically they really aren't angels. Like we'll talk about this when we get to the ending, but like they're like it's later discovered that they're actually, as you said, it's a parallel world. They're actually us who are dead and basically reincarnated in this new world.
Yeah. And so do we just want to hit that? Do you have anything specific before we go into that?
Well, I did want to mention one thing because it has to do so I had a theory, and I think given that there is a lot of research or reference to Christian mythology, have you guys ever read or know anything about the Divine Comedy, like Dante's Inferno, Purgatorio?
Yeah. I don't know anything about it.
Okay.
So.
Well, real quick, the only thing that matters here, because it's a whole story that's everyone says is the most well celebrated fan fiction ever, which is kind of true. But basically, it's a whole story about this guy going through who gets foresight and is able to actually visit both hell, purgatory, and heaven, finally in that order. And then through that, he writes about his experiences of what he saw. It's not supposed to be factual in any way, and even most religions throw it out because it's just not a part of the Bible. It's just some fiction that was written. But the interesting thing about that is that a lot of people do, at least from the Catholic perspective, a lot of people do believe in purgatory. And in this case, it's kind of seeming what this place, Glee, the town that they're in, is purgatory. Because we get into this thing where we see that the angels are born into this world and they had unfinished business of some sorts. And so now they're stuck in here until they ascend. Because they don't die. It's kind of alluded to, and there's definitely very, very good parallels between death and their day of flight where they move on from the walls.
Right.
But they don't die, and they clearly say that they don't. They always say they're going to a better place, and they literally mean it. They are in a better place.
Yeah, it's more of a passing, or a passage rather than a.
I could totally see where this is coming from.
Yeah, and so in purgatory, what you do as it's explained in that, is that you work directly on the sins of which you committed. You atone for those specific sins, and once you've atoned for those, you're good to go, and you can just go to heaven. That's what the idea of purgatory is. It's not heaven or hell. It's not bad. It's just a place where it's pretty all right and chipper and happy, but you have to work and you have to do good in order to make up for what you did in your past life. And you specifically work on the bad things that you did in your past life. So if you killed somebody, you work on helping others, or if you're lustful, you be celibate. That type of thing, which is kind of what these angels are doing. They have unfinished business, and once they finish it, they're good to go and they ascend to heaven. Is basically what it seems to be, because they literally say they gain their flight and just go over the wall.
Because I was definitely getting some kind of purgatory-ish vibes, because so we saw about so we see 2 Haibane actually go about their day of flight.
Mm-hmm.
We see 3 Haibane actually deal with some of their baggage stuff going on in the series. So even though their struggles were, again, theme of the show, sort of ambiguous in what they actually described, we never got any completely super solid, clear-cut facts about what was holding them up. Yeah, we do get this kind of idea where it's not necessarily an atonement per se, but they have to work through it themselves.
Yes.
Right.
So I mean, like Raka, our main character, or one of the central character in the series, her baggage was she hurt someone in some undisclosed way in her previous life.
Yeah, the only thing that we know is that she no longer wanted to exist it, which kind of seems like an allusion to suicide, but through her suicide she hurt somebody, is kind of what it seems to be.
Or something of that nature.
I didn't even get that, so wow. All right.
Oh, well, okay.
All right.
But yeah,
there.
And so, through that, it wasn't necessarily that she didn't atone for that in any sense. It's more that she came to a point of forgiveness, I suppose. And it was kind of through a surrogate of one of the crows, and she also seemed to have forgave herself as well.
Right.
So it's this very internalized thing. It's not a forgiveness that's necessarily acting on others, but it's more like a self-actualization kind of thing.
Yeah, and it seems to be that the forgiveness, while it may be handed down, it's a forgiveness through your own actions. You do something which grants you that forgiveness.
I did gather that much from the series. It seems like your own actions definitely determine whether or not you would be able to move on.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Which, when you think about it, if the angels are us reincarnated, what the hell are the humans in this town?
They're the angels. That's the real twist.
That actually wouldn't surprise me.
I know, it wouldn't surprise me now that you mentioned the whole purgatory thing, and when you think about it like that, it makes the world kind of make a lot more sense.
They're basically just the workers for that world. They live in that place and they just do their day-to-day jobs to assist with the angels. They even say that world, a couple of times they mention that world may have been created for the angels for their ascension. So
yeah. So I think your theory might hold some water there. I think it's at least interesting in regards of thinking about it. It seems like the accuracies are correct in most regards. So.
And I'm thinking that if they were going to make something about angels, most likely they probably wanted to do a little bit of research beforehand, unless you just want to write Sword Art Online. But besides that point, if you
Wow. All right. Let's skip right over that one. Let's keep going.
But most other mangakas will actually, or most other writers will actually do research beforehand. It doesn't have to be extensive, but you at least do a little bit. So they might have actually looked at, not necessarily Dante's Inferno, but looked at the idea of purgatory, since that is a Christian tenet, at least for some sects of Christianity. SECTS, by the way. Anyways.
Wow, you spelled that out just so you didn't determine that you said sex?
I said it weird. I had to spell it out for myself.
Just so people don't go searching sex of Christianity or something like that for
Hot Christian
your
singles in your area.
Oh no, we don't need those kinds of searches.
what?
I mean, we might get a tag like that now, though, so be ready for that.
But yeah, that's what I wanted to say about that whole thing, because I feel like if that's what they're going for, the purgatory thing, that leads into what we were going to say about the last couple of episodes and what they actually meant for the series.
Yeah. So Matt, you said you had a particular interest in the last, episode or so, and you felt like it really
the last
picked up
couple
for you.
episodes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I felt like that was a lot more tonally what I wanted from the show, I guess.
yeah. So maybe what specifically about the tone really struck with you, I guess.
I guess maybe it was that sort of. Well, I mean, there was like semblances of like a darker tone, like in the last half. But I think it really started like ramping up the drama, like in like the last couple episodes, and I felt like we were getting more information about what was happening, along with the fact that they were finally coming to a resolution. And the resolution that, for some reason, if I had to think of one scene that stuck out in my mind, it would be definitely episode 13, the whole resolution segment.
It basically all takes place in the same room.
Yeah, and that's it was just a pretty impactful moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like I felt like for one, they nailed the dramatic tone. I felt like they really nailed that, and it kind of made everything else kind of make sense for me, at least. Like, because apparently I didn't pick up a lot of the subtler things.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I feel like they really did a solid job in the last couple episodes, where Reiki, the Haibane that was Raka's kind of guardian for a while there, took her under her wing for the time being there. I feel like the last few episodes, especially 13, fleshed her out in such a way that I was infinitely more interested in her story than anything else that the series had put out so far.
There was a lot more focus on our central angel, and then there was a couple of like dashes of her beforehand, Reiki. But then like it really started to ramp up second half, but especially like the last like 3 episodes. It was basically all about her.
Yeah, right. And I feel like we can go into this without getting super spoilery, because if you have any intention of watching this series,
it is worth it not to spoil it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty good scene, actually. Like, I was actually really surprised, especially with all that stuff that came before, and I was a lot of I don't know about this show, and then I was like, okay, well, I can at least say that that's a good ending. It's like a good episode. The series ended well, is what I'm trying to say.
It's a solid payoff for what it was building up.
For as much as a slow burn it was, yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't feel like I wasted my time with the series or anything. I just felt really confused through the beginning half and definitely some of the latter halves. So, and I kind of ragged on the series at the beginning, but I mean, in the end, I did like it. It was just, I thought it was interesting in a lot of regards. I just didn't understand all of it. Kind of like the same way I didn't understand all of Serial Experiments Lane either.
I will say, especially for Serial Experiments Lane, though, that's when you got to watch a couple times over to get it. That one's really confusing. This is like Serial Experiments Lane light as far as confusion goes.
Yeah. Definitely. Sorry, go ahead.
No.
Oh, I was going to say something completely tangentially unrelated to what we were just talking about. So
no, it's fine.
So if yours is tangentially related, you go first.
I was just going to say that Haibane Renmei is, even though it is fairly abstract in a lot of what it does, it is definitely less so than Serial Experiments Lane.
It's abstract in its world and in the things surrounding the characters, but as far as the characters and their actual personal story and journey, quote unquote journey, I mean they're in a fucking town for the entire thing. That is very easy to follow because that's
Yeah.
that's very simple compared to Serial Experiments Lane was like, what the fuck is even going on?
Yeah. There was a lot of weird stuff happening in Lane. One thing I actually did find interesting about Haibane Renmei was the fact that, and you kind of touched on this a minute ago, but I want to reemphasize it, is the fact that you kind of had this emphasis on Raka, and then you had this shift to emphasis on Reki, and kind of like there was almost two main characters in the story.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it kind of like switched between the two. Like, and I know like there's someone's gonna like probably say that a lot of anime do that. They switch main characters all the time, but it's not like in the same way. It's like they're both intertwined together, but their stories are told separately. Like,
Yeah, we get a resolution in one before we get the resolution to the
hard
other.
to explain.
Yeah.
It's kind of like there's a necessary resolution of Raka's story before we can get to the resolution of Reki's.
Right. It is only because Raka got her resolution that Reki even came close to getting hers.
Yeah, and I guess what I'm trying to say is the fact that Raka was kind of framed as like the main character. She's even like on the freaking like artwork.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we got her resolution first before we got one of the other main characters. So, and hers was the emphasis of like, I want to say one of the bigger emphases of the series. So at the same time, it's like, it's kind of interesting the fact that they've got two characters and the main, what you would think is the main character story is resolved earlier than one of the other characters.
And a hell of a lot earlier, too.
Yeah, and that's the fascinating thing for me because, Raka's the first character that we see in this series. As you say, she's on all the key art for the show and everything.
Yeah.
She is, the titular kind of center for it. But Reki, like, she, aside from Raka, is the first other character we see. It's very clear that we have a big emphasis on her. And so, yeah, when we did seem like everything was, getting hunky-dory with Raka at that point, I was like, wow, that wrapped up for her quicker than I thought it was. And so, yeah, kind of like what you're saying, Matt. I think part of what makes this so interesting, is that it's not necessarily a traditional kind of multiple main characters. It's not like there's multiple main characters that are progressing at a similar pace side by side as the series goes along. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like a relay sort of thing. And the thing is, you wouldn't necessarily really initially expect that we were going to get a lot of focus on Reki's story.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because for me, I was like, okay, well, she's kind of caretaker. She stays home with, the little Haibane, the children and all that jazz. And I was like, okay, so she's a pretty strong supporting character. And then, when it starts ramping up more with some of her story, I was like, oh, I wasn't fully expecting this.
Yeah, but I don't think it's jarring is the thing that I thought was interesting. It wasn't jarring or sudden or like, okay, why are we taking an additional like half the show to wrap this one up? Because what I thought was interesting is that from the get-go, as you said, the very first person that we see is Raka, but then immediately afterwards we see Reki. And then we actually stick with our focus on Reki for a good portion of the first episode. And then we focus on Raka for a couple episodes, but there was a lot of trade-off. There was a lot more of the story being told around a particular character at any given time. And while most of the first few episodes were very adamantly about Raka, there were little sprinkles of Reki and her past and what she was in what was bothering her. It's just we never really got the full-fledged thing of that until basically a mid-season finale, where all of a sudden one character wraps up and this next character suddenly feels jealousy, they feel a bunch of other things, and we start to see that there is a facade underneath or that there is something dark underneath that facade. And I thought that they did that relatively well because it didn't feel jarring or disconnected. Like, so for instance, Death Note always felt jarring for me that all of a sudden one character goes away and then we just move on to something else, like something else entirely, and that always messed with me a little bit. And I don't feel like there was a lot of good connection between this one story and then the next story that they were telling with Nier and Mello. And so, but in this one, it felt a lot more connected than that did.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And I definitely think that what they were doing there was interesting. I guess the problem for me would be, for some reason, I apparently just I thought Rocka's like story ended later, than like the middle of the series. Like, I mean, you might be saying middle, like 7
I
or 8.
say middle, but it's actually like
It's like episode
It's
8
probably-
or 9.
it's like episode 8 or 9 or something like that. It's
Yeah,
not really close.
It's not
to
the
that at
smack
all.
dab, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I figured it was just the word you were using. But I mean, I guess that maybe that's what it was. It's just her ending and like her wrap up of Rocka was just not like as clear cut as I guess Reki's was, and maybe that's what confused me in my mind. Was I was like, what the heck is going on? Why is Rocka kind of like
Right.
struggling with all these things, and then like suddenly they just stop, and I'm like, I was a little confused, and I guess it was because it was just an internal resolution, and they probably depicted it well, that because obviously she was fine after that. So I was like, okay, I guess that was the resolution. It's just for some reason, I don't know, something jumbled in my mind for some reason when I was watching.
Well, I
but
think it has
I don't
a-
think it was. I don't.
I'm
Oh, go
sorry.
ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think it's probably because it sounds like all three of us were just really expecting the resolution for Rocka being much later, like the end, and then it wasn't, and we're like, oh, okay, it just
Yeah.
keeps going,
And
but it
I
kept
guess
going
that's what it
well.
was. Oh yeah, and I'm not going to argue that it didn't go well. Like, I mean, what they did with the series and how it ended was really, it really tied it all well together. Like, that was well done. I wouldn't say it's bad writing in any regard. It was actually pretty good writing in that regard. It's just, I was just confused sometimes. Like, here I am. What am I going to do with all these? I don't know. All these characters, all these plot points. I can't hold them all. Like, they're like the limes.
Yeah, but they did do a good job. Yeah, I will say something that didn't help this series was that I do felt that as much as I liked the pacing and how slow burn it was because it allowed exploration, there were I did notice, at least from a cinematography standpoint, there were a couple of more than a couple. There were multiple awkward shots where it seemed to just go on a little too long, or there was just no
Yeah.
sound playing, and because there was no sound playing, it felt a lot longer than what it actually was. And then there was the art style is a lot older, and so there's a lot more simplicity in their faces and the actual like expressions that they're making.
Mhm.
And so like it was a lot harder to discern exactly what emotionally was going on sometimes for the characters. You just kind of had to look at their face and then look at the very next thing that they do in order to try and figure it out, instead of actually getting that just from the face.
Yeah, and maybe that messed with me a little bit too. Used
Yeah.
to characters being a little more expressive, but I wouldn't say the animation's bad. I say
No,
it's
no.
definitely dated. I would say it's dated, but I wouldn't say it's.
it definitely does show its age, which is kind of weird to even think about. Because, I mean, I guess it'd be, 14 years now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's like the difference between, I don't know, it's a difference between a style like Cowboy Bebop, which just can't age, and then this, which had a little bit more reliant upon some other things that were going on around that time as far as style goes, that were a little bit more typical, and
Mhm.
and so like I think it hurts it a little bit, but you can still watch it and you can still really enjoy it, and I think
Yeah, you can get a lot out of it. Still.
yeah, and I think even if it does look a little dated, it's still going to be one of those things like Serial Experiments Lane, where like if you upres it and ship it out on a Blu-ray with like redoing the colors a little bit, it would look fine. It would look totally fine, and it would still hold up well.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. I did notice the directing thing where it did seem like some of the shots went on a little long. I actually wrote that down
And I think
because I was like, wow, this is
Yeah.
taking a little while.
And I think sometimes the shots weren't necessarily time-wise going on for so long, but because there was such a like sometimes there's a lot of use of silence, which nobody does anymore. It's just on with like music and sound and all these other things.
Yeah, that's really strange.
Like I said,
Why they
it's a
use all the
very
silence, but-
very old style of doing things. You don't typically see that nowadays. You like that's a callback to like Stanley Kubrick and that style of classical cinema. And the people that only do that nowadays is like Quentin Tarantino and all these other like very renowned people that do it and expect that patience out of you. But most of the time, directors, as far as animation goes and other things like that, whether it's Western or Japanese, they don't want that because there's a lot more immediacy in like today's world where we just want everything now, and so they have to put music in. They have to get things going. That's
right.
not, and that's.
I mean, I don't.
I was gonna say that's not to say that it's worse in any way, because like you can do that and you can do that really well. Like take for instance, Nichijou has just like joke after joke after joke sometimes. But and sometimes it's very loud and surprising and everybody's like wacky and goofy, but it works really well for that if you know how to do that. Or you can have a much more dramatic show and do that really well where it's in your face, but it's just a stylistic difference.
Yeah, and I would definitely agree with that. That's you actually said what I was going to say. So
oh, I'm sorry.
That ended up being okay though.
This is the theme of the show.
You said it, not me.
Kyle talks over everyone and steals their words. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I didn't have to say anything. So congratulations.
The stuff gets
you're
said
on the same wavelength.
You know,
all right.
Whatever.
Also, I want to point out that this is just something that I looked up and found, like literally just now. We were talking about the music a little bit.
I want to get into that. I have like 2 paragraphs, but you say it first because I do not want to steal this.
Well, I was just gonna say that surprisingly, the one of the big music people that worked on this was Ken Otani or Ko Otani. Sorry,
fucking Shadow of the Colossus, motherfucker. Yes. Yeah, turns out that he actually worked on this series. Also, turns out he worked on the music, the OST of Another, which I also didn't know. He's done a shit.
That is also really weird.
He
does a lot of anime.
Yeah, I would like to point out because Ko Otani has also done the music because I wrote it down for Gundam Wing, for Zoid's the new one in which it's a battle mech thing instead of the old one where it's like a fantasy setting. He worked on the new one. He did Zoid's New Century Zero, and he also did Jin Rui, which we love. Yeah.
Well, that's a smorgasbord of shit.
Yeah, this guy's fucking awesome. I love him.
Yeah.
Okay.
He does all sorts of weird things. And they're all like he just like look on A&N right now. It looks like he also did the music for Outlaw Star. Like
well, he did some of the music. No, he did the whole soundtrack. That was my bad.
Yeah, it says music comp. So there's all sorts of things that he worked on, and I kind of like noticed his style. Like I've gotten pretty good at it actually because I've watched the whole Shakugan no Shana series and other series that he did, and it's a lot of those elements really carried over really well. Like he's just really good at and I have a hard time nailing what he's actually good at. He knows how to time the music with the events. It's the timing, and because like when it peaks up, the music peaks up at exactly the right time. And it peaks up in exactly the right kind of like, I don't know what you would call it. It's the right flow. It's got the flow down. Like it ramps up at the right times, ramps down at the right times, and it fits perfectly.
Both tempo and theming of the songs are fucking spot on. And then on top of that, it's
absolutely.
Like on top of that, he also will use like if a particular scene asks for it because it's a lot more intimate, he uses way less instruments. But if there's a lot more going on or it's very dramatic, way more instruments to really sell it. And he does that.
He's really good at doing that.
Yeah,
he's very good at doing that. He's very good at dramatic moments. Like I've noticed that, like when the drama comes in, like he just blasts it, and it's amazing.
And he makes me cry every time.
Yeah, it's great. I love his soundtracks.
Oh my gosh,
absolutely.
I love him.
I had no idea. I'm super happy to know that now.
You want to know something
Yeah.
else interesting about the music that I have down here, which you
Sure.
guys might find interesting? So the ED is Blue Flow, which is kind of given because it's the very last thing that they say and it's super emphasized. But it was done by Masumi Ito. She is
Right.
she's a girl
Actually, that's
that has been in several different bands. There was like Orange Slices and stuff like that, who have made and composed music for both openings and EDs for Azumanga Daioh. Jinrui, which you might remember the ED for Jinrui, is very similar in theme
And
and
if you're
style.
gonna say what you're gonna say, if I think the next series what you say is what I think you're gonna say, then we basically wrote down the same thing.
Yes, Flip Flappers. They did the ED for Flip Flappers, which we both love. Flip Flap is fucking
we just
fantastic.
watched.
And
So
Are you for real?
yeah,
yeah,
mind blown. We didn't plan this.
No.
This is not planned.
we just both looked it up. But that's the thing, is that if you listen to all those back to back, Azumanga Daioh's Raspberry Heaven is a little bit more happier than the other ones. But if you listen to Blue Flow, Flip Flap,
It's
and Jinrui's ED, they're so similar in style and theme because they hit that vibe of happy with a weird tinge of creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that very how do you put it? Like I guess it is very fairy-like almost. If
Yes.
we're talking Jinrui, it is that sort of
Mystical.
It feels like if you
it's very
opened up,
whimsical.
yeah, it feels like if you opened up
Way.
a like Brothers Grimm book of fairy tales, that's the song that would come out of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of whimsy to it, but there's also things that will tear you to pieces.
Yes, it's
Underneath
very
the
whimsy,
surface.
it's very happy, but it has creepy vibes, it has darker vibes to it, and it mixes all that together, but it sounds so good. That's what I
Yes.
love, and they do that so well. And I thought
Oh,
that
yeah.
was a perfect choice for this
Ooh,
series.
that's fascinating.
Along with Jinrui, along with Flip Flappers, like that's just excellent choice because they stylistically
Absolutely.
do that wonderful.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely.
I was getting so excited whenever you said music. I was like, I wrote paragraphs.
Yeah, I wrote a couple
I
of short.
believe it.
I wrote a couple of short paragraphs, just things that I noticed, and I was like, "Oh, well, that's interesting." And then I'm like, I figured that would get some good discussion.
And it's like you
Since
said,
you guys like music, so.
they use music really well in this series. In fact, I even note the one where Ku, the one angel that gets their day of flight, which is a parallel to death, basically, even though they're moving on to heaven. Like, whenever that happens, it was really well done because they're all gathered around an altar where they lay down Ku's halo, and they're praying. And then all you hear is just the ringing of the clock tower and a very simple song backing up that ringing of the clock tower in time with the clock tower. And it hit that scene real perfectly. And then there's also another part later where the drama, like, it's very dramatic and it's building and building and building, and all of a sudden something snaps in one of the characters' hands, and immediately it's silence. Music, sound, everything cuts off. And it worked really well to show like how creepy and like, oh shit, that moment was. They did a really good job with the sound design in this one.
Yeah, that spot on.
Although-
Definitely.
I will say I laughed at a few scenes I shouldn't have laughed at because they have a sound effect every time that Raka, our central character, falls, or it's like it's like a high pitched kind of thing whenever she hits the ground.
That's
It's-
the single most descriptive sound effect you've ever given us,
I'm
Kyle.
really fucking terrible at it. It's got a crunch to it, but it's higher pitched where it's like, and it's the same exact sound effect as the Gundams falling in Gundam Wing. So every time she fucking face plants on the road, I'm just like, Hiro, no, get up, Gundam, get up. It's the
Oh my
same
God.
exact sound effect.
I feel terrible because I also laughed when she was falling.
Because she
But-
falls a lot, and then it's like
Falls a
fucking
lot.
She's
face plant.
falling.
And it's like all the time too. It's
Yeah.
just like I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
Rock is the
she's falling.
least. She's the least graceful person on the planet in this
And
show.
it's intentionally so. It's supposed to be part of her character, but it's fucking funny every time.
Oh yeah.
Also, I liked the tiny little, as far as like the animation goes, I like the tiny little things that they did because they're angels. which were like super cute and adorable. Like there's this one guy that's being a kind of an asshole, and he's just kind of being a jerk. And so this one person is presenting him with food, and he doesn't want to take it.
I knew you were going to talk
She
about
just
that.
puts the plate on top of his halo and walks away. And he looks up and he's like, "Ah, what the fuck?" and then whenever Rocket didn't want to get out of bed, they literally pull her out of bed by her halo. And then whenever she's cleaning her feathers, she actually rustles them just like a bird to get rid of the moisture, where it's like, and then like all the water just kind of flicks off of it like a dog shaking.
Or like a bird.
Or like a bird, yeah. But it's super cute. I like those tiny little things that
Like
they
a bird.
hint at, because they're human but with bird wings and stuff like that. I thought it was neat little details for that I just didn't expect.
It does do a lot of nice work with small attention to detail, even if it's small little character bits that aren't touched on
Yeah.
much. Like, I really like the design of Ku's room. There wasn't a lot of time to focus on all the little knickknacks that were in there, but like her little menagerie set with all of her Haibane compatriots as, small frog figurines or things like that.
Yeah.
There was, like mobiles in the room and all this sort of stuff. And so it really made the characters feel alive, even though they weren't doing anything directly through the characters with those small little details. So yeah, small details, good job with them.
And there was a lot of detail to like how they actually held themselves or like maneuvered too, because they would bend down a lot lower in order to make sure their wings got through a doorway or something like that. Or whenever they leaned against the wall, they typically always leaned on their side, because if they leaned on their back, they'd be leaning on their wings. They did sleep on their wings, which I guess could get comfortable enough, but they typically only did that, or it showed them doing that, whenever they were sick and basically on a deathbed. And then at that point, you're laying on your back because you have to. But like what they show, Raka always sleeps on her side otherwise, and stuff like that. And I was like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Anything else? I touched on like basically all of my notes.
Yeah. There's
everything. So go ahead.
There's a lot that we could talk about in this show, but really a lot of it boils down to what would essentially be armchair philosophy for a couple hours on end.
And a lot of theorizing.
That's not which isn't necessarily specific to what we're given in this show, and not everything is, a lot of the philosophy is not like only extant in this show, so it's not necessarily. And just because pertinent
we think it's one way doesn't mean that it actually is, because there's a lot, like we said, there's a lot of mysticism to this show, and they don't explain everything. So like we're taking guesses.
Right. Yeah. So for what we actually have, and for what we can actually, with a fair degree of certainty, suss out for this show, we've hit everything I wanted to talk about.
Cool.
Yeah.
So it's not for everyone. It doesn't necessarily follow the kind of pace or delivery of story that many shows these days ascribe to. Again, this is a late 2002 anime. But if you're looking for something that's maybe out of your comfort zone, or if you're just looking for something that you are entirely not expecting, I definitely give this a go.
And if you have the patience,
it's a ride and a half.
Yeah, if you have the patience for it, it's definitely worth it, because especially if you like shows that are just kind of your preference, where you might like to like just kind of explore and think about it as it goes. Instead of it having a direct message it wants to tell you, it's a show that allows you to make your own message for a good portion of it.
If you like thinking a lot about all that stuff, it's probably a pretty good show to do that. Like, you just want to, just kind of contemplate the world and its existence.
And get really fucking existential. Yeah.
Watch some anime, get existential, and let that percolate for a while.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess that's it. So I guess we'll see everybody next
Yeah.
podcast. Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.